The wind whistled across the plains like a ghost that had forgotten where to rest, sweeping dust and memories into the cracks of an old wooden cabin that stood alone against the dying sun. Inside that cabin lived one man, Elias Kane, a rancher whose name once meant something around the town of Red Hollow. But that was 10 years ago, before the river dried, before the storms came, before his wife, Clara, closed her eyes one final time and left him with nothing but the echo of her laughter and the scent of her lavender shawl that still hung by the door. For 10 long years, Elias slept alone in that cabin. The silence of the prairie, his only company, the creak of the bedframe whispering her name each time he turned in his sleep. He worked his ranch like a man bound to duty rather than life, tending the fences, mending the barn, feeding the horses that seemed to age slower than he did. His hands were cracked, his eyes dim, and his heart, though still beating, had turned to something cold and quiet, like the ashes of an old campfire. But on a late autumn evening, when the sun bled orange through the slats of the horizon and the coyotes had just begun their distant howls, a knock came at his door. It was a sound so unexpected that for a heartbeat, Elias thought it might have been the wind. But then it came again, steady, deliberate, soft enough to be human, but heavy enough to carry the weight of something important. He reached for his revolver out of habit, thumb brushing against the cold iron, before stepping across the floorboards that groaned beneath his boots. When he opened the door, the dusk light cut through the threshold like a blade, and there, standing in that amber glow, was a woman. Her coat dusted from the trail, her hair unbound from the wind, and her eyes were Clara's. For a moment, Elias forgot to breathe. The years peeled away like smoke. "Evening, Elias," she said softly, her voice trembling between exhaustion and something he couldn't yet name. You don't remember me, do you?" Elias blinked, his jaw tightening. "Mary?" The woman nodded, a faint smile breaking through the dust on her lips. "It's been a long time." He stepped aside, silent, his mind a storm. Mary, Clara's younger sister, the one who'd left for the city after the funeral, the one he hadn't seen or heard from in 10 years. She carried a small leather suitcase, the kind you'd pack in a hurry, and her dress was torn at the hem. Elias noticed the way she glanced over her shoulder before stepping inside, as if afraid the darkness might follow her in. "What brings you here?" he asked finally, his voice low and rough. Mary hesitated before setting her suitcase down by the bed. "I had nowhere else to go," she said. "There were men on the road. I think they followed me from town." Elias frowned. "What kind of men?" She looked down, twisting her hands together. "The kind that don't ask questions before drawing their guns." He studied her. The same eyes as Clara, the same fire, though dulled by fear and miles of dust. He poured her a glass of water from the jug on the table, and as she drank, he saw the tremor in her fingers. "You can stay here for the night," he said after a pause. "You'll be safe." She nodded, whispering a quiet thank you. though her eyes said more. Gratitude mixed with something deeper, something unspoken. Outside, thunder rolled far off in the hills, and the scent of rain drifted through the open door. Elias shut it, bolting the latch, then turned back to her. "You look tired," he said softly. "Get some rest. We'll talk in the morning." Mary nodded and sat on the edge of the bed, the lamplight brushing across her face. Elias took his old chair by the door, revolver resting on his knee, listening to the rain begin to fall. He didn't sleep, not because of danger, but because of memory. Every flicker of the lantern brought Clara's face back into his mind. Her laughter in that very room, her hands kneading dough, her voice humming softly by that same window. And now, 10 years later, her sister sat in her place, as if time had bent back on itself in some cruel trick of fate. When the first lightning cracked the sky, Elias saw something through the window. Movement down the trail. The glint of light off metal. He rose slowly, eyes narrowing. 3 horses, 3 riders, moving slow, deliberate. His gut told him what his mind already knew. Whoever Mary was running from had just found her trail. He turned to her. "Mary," he said, his voice low but firm. "You tell me the truth, right now. Who are those men outside?" Her face went pale. "They're bounty hunters," she whispered. "I didn't steal anything, Elias. I swear it. But they think I did." He stepped toward her, the floor creaking under his boots. "What did you take?" "Not money," she said, tears forming in her eyes. Something worse. The sheriff's ledger. It's got names in it. Elias. Men who took money for killing folks that didn't deserve it. I was working as a clerk in town, and I found it." He exhaled slowly, jaw tightening. "You brought hell to my door, Mary." "I didn't mean to," she said, her voice breaking. I didn't know where else to go." For a long moment, neither spoke, only the rain, heavy now, drumming against the roof like hooves. Then Elias crossed the room, grabbed his hat from the hook, and checked his revolver. "Stay inside," he said, "no matter what you hear." Elias. No arguments. He opened the door, stepping out into the storm. The lightning flared again, and for a heartbeat, he looked like the man he used to be. Strong, determined, unbroken. The years of grief had not taken everything from him. As he walked into the rain, he heard Mary's voice behind him, soft, afraid. "Elias, I didn't just come here for help." He turned, water dripping from his hat brim. "Then why?" She swallowed hard, her eyes shining in the lantern glow. "Because Clara asked me to. Before she died, she told me if I was ever lost, I'd find my way back to you." Elias stared at her, thunder echoing across the valley. For the first time in 10 years, something deep inside him stirred. Something like hope, or maybe just the memory of it. But before he could answer, a gunshot split the air. The riders had arrived.